Let's talk racism. No, seriously, let's talk racism. Euro 2020 is finally upon us, delayed by a year thanks to COVID, and it was just far too expensive to rebrand an entire international tournament, so we're kind of running with 2020 even though it's 2021. But in any event, England began their preparations for Euro 2020-2021 with two friendly matches against Austria and Romania. Now the thing is, at the beginning of these matches, when the referee blew his whistle to start the game and the players on the pitch took to the knee, the scenes that greeted them were far from what we would describe as friendly. Now, it should be mentioned that the 8,000 fans who attended these friendlies, these weren't just random blokes who happened to be wandering around the stadium that day. These were lifelong members of England's supporters club, which kind of means that they were a demographic or a cross-section of England's most loyal and devoted fans, which really begs the question, was it wrong for them to boo when the players took the knee? In fact, this was far from the first time that a group of football fans banded together and booed to show an opposition to this gesture. Back in December, when fans were allowed briefly into games for the first time since before the pandemic, this happened.
No sooner had they knelt than it began. And it was definitely the Millwall fans.
You're not going to do it. No one likes us. No one likes us. We are Millwall from the den. No one likes them. I guess it's Millwall, so you can't really extrapolate from that case study a general message about football fans around the world. Nonetheless, here's what England manager Gareth Southgate had to say about the situation.
I did hear it. It's not...
I've picked 4 right backs.
It's not something on behalf of our black players that I wanted to hear, because it feels as though it's a criticism of them. I think we have got a situation where some people seem to think it's a political stand that they don't agree with. That's not the reason that the players are doing it. We're supporting each other. I think some people aren't quite understanding the message.
This opens a number of important questions. Firstly, in what way is booing the gesture of taking the knee somehow against or a criticism of England's black players? This is something that is heard quite often in modern society's attempt to grapple with morality, where it's become almost a zero-sum, absolutist game.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Wherein, if you're not with us, you're against us. And therefore, by booing the gesture of taking the knee, QED, you are racist, and you are somehow against black people. Secondly, is it true, as Southgate claims, that there are no political undertones to the gesture of taking the knee ahead of a game? Without wading too far into controversy cove here, it's worth remembering that the gesture of taking a knee is inextricably and unavoidably linked to the Black Lives Matter movement that began in 2013 with the unlawful killing of Trayvon Martin, and subsequently, just over a year ago, rose to global prominence with the unlawful killing of George Floyd. Now, I should hope that a commitment to fighting racism and injustice around the world is a value around which we can all universally rally. The problem is, when you channel that commitment through a specific movement which inevitably has specific solutions to the general problem, that is where politics enters the scene. To give you just a couple of examples, the Black Lives Matter movement promotes policies such as the End 1033 campaign, which effectively calls for police departments to be disarmed. It also, in the wake of the COVID pandemic, set up the BLM Survival Fund, which exists to divert financial support to black families affected by the pandemic. So here's the So here's the rub. What if a person agrees passionately that racism needs to be fought, but they disagree with the specific methods that a specific movement believes that fight should be carried out? What if a person disagrees with disarming police departments? What if they disagree with providing financial support for a specific ethnic group? What if a person feels that by taking the knee, they aren't just showing a support for ending racism, they're showing a support of ending it in a specific way? It's also important to mention that taking a knee isn't the only way of showing solidarity against racism. In fact, almost a year before the whole George Floyd uproar, in a match between Ajax and Heracles in the Dutch League, this is how the players in that game showed their support for ending racism. You know what? Maybe that's what Gareth Southgate meant at the end of his comments when he said that people no longer understand the simple meaning and message of the symbolism of this gesture, which got me thinking. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's not been politicized and become highly complex and complicated, and maybe it's not as tied into the policies of Black Lives Matter as Nigel Farage and his friends would have you believe. But if Southgate's right, and this message from day one has been really simple and easy, why is it that a year down the line, a significant chunk of people still don't get it? And maybe therefore it's time for us to ask, is there any lasting value in a simple gesture that isn't backed up, supported and followed through with real action, education and initiatives that support what the gesture stands for? Interestingly, just a few weeks before the end of the Premier League season, Crystal Palace striker and talisman Wilfried Zaha conspicuously refused to take the knee ahead of a game against West Brom. He had this to say.
I feel like taking the knee is degrading stuff because growing up, my parents just let me know that I should be proud to be black no matter what. And I just feel like we should just stand tall. We do it before games, and even sometimes people forget that we have to do it before games. Like people pass the ball before and forget, oh, sorry. Trying to get the meaning behind the whole thing. It's becoming, I don't know, it's becoming like something that we just do now, you know? Yeah. Like that, and that's not enough for me. I'm not going to take the knee. I'm not going to wear Black Lives Matter on the back of my... Because it feels like it's a target. Yeah. We're isolating ourselves. We're trying to say we're equal, but we're isolating ourselves with these things that are not even working anyway.
There were some really interesting points here raised by Zaha, who, remember, is one of the highest profile black players in the entire Premier League. And a number of things he said really resonated with me. For starters, he mentions how people taking the knee, it's become almost monotonous, robotic. We're doing it by rote because that's what's expected of us, and that's just what everyone else does, so we'll do it too. We've lost almost all consciousness and mindfulness of that moment. He says so much so that sometimes games begin and the players pass the ball and then they go, oh, whoops, sorry, forgot to take the knee, start again, we're going to do it. And he says it's lost all the special, unique meaning and message and understanding that it had in the first place. Now, this is a problem that is commonplace across almost every aspect of our lives, from relationships to our social lives to our professional lives and even our religious lives. When you think about it, doing and saying the same thing I said yesterday and the day before that and the day before that and the day before that until the day I was born, eventually I realised I'm only doing these things because everyone else expects them of me or everyone else is doing them. And the question therefore becomes, how do you take a symbol or a gesture and perform it by rote over and over again and not lose sight of its real meaning? Now, it's true, sometimes a gesture can be lost, but more often than that, we end up getting lost in the gesture until eventually the people who actually have power, those who actually have the wherewithal to effect lasting change, they hide behind the fact that, well, look, everyone's kneeling, so we're doing something to solve the problem, when in reality what we need to start doing a year down the line is moving the focus away from a patch of grass involving grown men chasing a sphere around a pitch, and take that stand in the places where change and difference is needed most, in our schools, in our workplaces, and our communities. Now, it goes without saying, there's a world of difference between those who don't take the knee and those who boo people who do. But that's a conversation for another time. I mean, if you're going to boo England, don't boo them because they're taking the knee. Boo them because they're boring and Southgate plays 6 holding midfielders somehow supporting Harry Kane. Do the rabbis have so much power? Is Judaism just an endless friction between religious and secular groups? And does Judaism believe in a division between church and state? We are Millwall, no one likes us, we don't care, no one likes us. We are Millwall, from the den, no one likes us, no one likes us. They are fantastic. And maybe it's time we can add at this point that now it goes to now it go. Seriously, they're gonna be gone by the end of the day. Gonna scare them off entirely. Okay.